Master of Gravity Baromagnes is a deck from D-BT09 that focuses on amassing a large amount of cards in your soul in order to enable all three of Baromagnes' abilities. This card says when this unit attacks, you counterblast 1, perform all of the following according to the number of cards in your soul. 5 or more, you draw a card. 10 or more, and this unit gets 10k in critical to the end of that battle. 15 or more, and both you and your opponent put all of the rear guards that are on field into their respective soul. You, the Baromagnes player, choose 2 cards from your soul, call them to rear guard circle, and those units get 10k to the end of that turn. So that means this is a deck or a Vanguard that can do just about everything that you want. It can allow you to draw cards, it can get 10k in a crit to pressure your opponent, and it can also give you 5 attacks while giving you board clear of all of your opponent's units without targeting them and putting them into soul, which is a very, big way to remove your opponent's units, because it is, for most decks, very difficult for them to actually get those units back, right? Zorga can't just Monster Reborn to get them back, and they have to get them out of soul first. As great as Baromagnes is, he's typically always in this position in the format where he is the best of decks and also the worst of decks, because in order to enable this amazing abilities, all of these, you have to have massive amounts of cards in your soul, which means you have to put massive amount of cards from your deck into your soul, which can lead you to decking out, as well as using triggers, as well as using most of your cards in your deck in order for you to be able to achieve this 15 soul, using several cards in order for you to be able to soul charge. But you do have a sort of silver lining in that you can also play cards that benefit from all of this soul, such as the Brainwash Swirler, which get massive number from all your soul charging, the Selfish Engraver that lets you counter charge, and finally the Lilac Lasher here, which allows you to close out games as it gets 2k for every card in your soul, able to reach a massive 36, 48, 58 power thanks to its skill. Take a look at our hand here, pre-mulligan here. Of course, you want to keep the Curtis, as many copies of him as you can, as well as a Pandemonium and an Engraver and a Swirler. You want to have those in your hand. Other than that, everything else goes back. Here's our hand. Stand up, Vanguard. We're going to draw for turn here. We're going to go ahead and pitch the Quagga in order to ride the Flaming Pony. You pass turn on that. Eva will draw here, discard the heal trigger, ride into grade 1 Eva, search the deck for the grade 1 research order, shuffle the deck, draw for going second, play the order, and swing in here. We don't want to take any damage, so we're going to go ahead and guard that. Check, it is just a PG, so we don't take any damage there. Pass turn. Let's go ahead and draw for turn and stand up. We're going to have to pitch the heal trigger here in order to ride into Electro Spartan here. Depending on how you expect the matchup to go, you can try and play the Selfish Engraver, but it's very important to keep her in hand right now, so we're just going to go ahead and swing in here for 10. Going second, knowing Barrow is going to blow us back, we're going to go ahead and guard this here. We're going to go ahead and check a draw trigger, power, and draw into a Persona Ride. Pass turn on that. Let's go ahead and draw. Knowing the Baromagnes is coming, we can discard this grade 2 Obscurate, keep the heal trigger in hand, go into the grade 2 here. We already have a grade 1 research order in hand, so we'll add another copy of the grade 3 here, and we'll play the grade 2. We could counterblast the 9 here, but let's just go in for it. We of course need to counterblast, so we'll just take this. Check is going to be a critical trigger, so first check heal, power to Vanguard, second check draw trigger, power to Vanguard, and we will draw 1. Somewhere around there. Let's go ahead and draw for turn here. So we have a couple of options here. We have to end the game as quickly as possible. So we're actually going to discard the Keenly Ludley here and ride into the Master of Gravity Baromagnes here. We're going to use the skill of Electro Spartan to put in this pony into soul, draw 1, and go ahead and soul charge another pony. That is a pretty good hit there. We're going to go ahead and play the Brainwash Swirler here, soul charge 1. He's going to get +5 for 13, and we're going to immediately just slap down our Pandemonium Tactics since we don't have any other Swirlers. And we'll just soul charge 1, 2, 3, and 4. Swirler here is going to get a +20, putting him at 33. Let's go ahead and we can throw down, not you, but the Curtis here on this side in order to soul charge 2 more. Swirler is going to go up to 43, and then we can go ahead and throw down a Selfish Engraver here. Currently in Soul, we have ourselves 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 cards in Soul. After we bind both of the, actually we can do all 3 of the ponies that we have here. From our Soul, we can go ahead and Soul Charge 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Of course, we hit the over trigger, but playing Baromagnes or any Dark States deck, you should not be shook by that by now. So, Swirler is at 73, and let's take a look at her Soul. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. We actually don't even need the Selfish Engraver here, so that's pretty good to see. We can go ahead and swing in here with our Curtis for 13. Knowing what's coming down, we can either try and take this or guard it. I think we'll guard this. Selfish Engraver here will swing in. I'm already at 15, so there's no point in trying to guard this, so we'll just go ahead and take this. Because of this, we will Soul Charge 1 to a Lilac Lasher, and she will go into Soul. We'll go ahead and Counter Charge 1. Baromagnes will go ahead and swing in here. We'll Counter Blast 1. We will draw a card. We will get 10k in a crit, and all units will go to Soul. We have quite a lot of options here, considering we're going against Eva, and there's not massive amounts of removal. We can go into double Lilac Lasher, but considering the Eva is going to do their whole thing here, we're actually going to go into the Kogra. Instead, discard the draw trigger in order to add the PG to our hand. And we're going to Soul Charge 1. It's going to be a draw trigger, regretfully, and give our front row 5k power here. So Barrow is now at 28, and with these 3 guards, we should presumably be able to go into the next turn, do a good amount of damage here, and then ideally win on a Persona Ride turn here. So this is going to be 28 with 2 damage because of the extra critical here. As the Eva player, you can either take this or guard this. Let's say that we guard this. Perhaps we discard this Obscurate here. First check Swirler, second check Pandemonium, so we got blanks here. We have the Kogra here, who can swing in for 25. We can guard that for 28. And then the Lilac Lasher will be a big number that we will not calculate. We'll just take that and hit the critical trigger and pass turn on that. Stand and draw. It's looking like maybe we discard the critical trigger here, ride into the grade 3 Eva. Let's go ahead and use our research order here. Look at the top 3, not get the best hits here, so let's go ahead and get the Baromagnes, put everything else back in deck and shuffle. Let's actually maybe put this here. Use the skill of Eva to look at the top 3. We can try and swing in here. It's not going to do too much. I think we might have to try to play the long game here. So let's grab the PG. Eva will get an additional +5 here. We can rest our orders here in order to give Eva an additional 5, so she gets for a little bit more threatening numbers. We could have grabbed the grade 2 here, but we're just going to go ahead and swing in here for 31. We of course have enough counterblasts here to do whatever we want, so we don't have to take this. Of course, the Obscurate will come down thanks to the Eva skill, which will counter blast 1, so blast out 1, call out an Obscurate here, presumably, to try and get the crit. The other option that I can see an Eva player do is, since it won't be as much damage here and you won't be winning, you can go instead into the other grade 2 Obscurate. For some reason I thought he had a different name, in order to attack my front row, which makes sense to me. So what I'll do in that case is I'll try and guard possibly the Lilac Lasher, but to be honest, I do have another one in Soul, whereas the Kogra we actually don't. So we'll see how this goes. So we'll just go ahead and no guard here. First check Combine Rusher, second check is just an Obscurate. We'll take this 1 damage into the Brainwash Roller, and then swing in here with the 15 from the Obscurate here. In order to guard here, we can do 17 and 10. We could guard this, but I think maybe we can take it. This roller would give us bigger numbers, so yeah, we'll take that, lose that, be able to guard, and this can go to Soul and counter charge, and no, have to pass turn on that. Here we can stand and draw, go into Persona Ride here. and draw one card. It's going to be the Elementia Sanctitude, which we can use. We don't want to take any more damage here because we don't have a lot of cards left in deck here. And we discard the Keenly Ludley. So we're going to go ahead and play the Brainwash Roller. As I just said, we don't want to discard here, but we're going to be able to soul charge a draw trigger, which is good. So we don't have to worry about checking that later on. And possibly decking out. Swirler is going to get +5. Partner gets +10 from the Persona Ride. We can try and close out this game a little better by playing this here and trying to get an extra power. Depending on what is in the opponent's hand, I'm trying not to cheat and look directly at this screen here. We can throw this down to make this a bigger number, but I'm pretty sure this is big enough. If I didn't have the Swirler, we would definitely do this for the Quote Raw. So we're going to swing in here for 33 in order to guard this. I think we probably want to try and guard this to make use of these upgrades. Maybe do one of these for 38 there. Then the Lilac Lasher is going to swing in for a big number. We can't really guard that, so we're just going to have to take that. Thankfully, we did get the critical trigger here to give us the power. Barrow is going to go ahead and swing in here. We're going to Counterblast 1, draw 1 card into the Swirler, put everything into Soul. We're actually just going to call these two guys out again. We can use the skill here of the Quote Raw. You can pitch the Pandemonium tactics you have for another PG. Considering how low my cards are in deck, that might help you out to last longer. I don't know. If that's the best option, let's just say if we did do that, it's actually going to be a heal trigger, so we maybe don't want to do that with the power of hindsight here, but I wasn't going to do it anyways. So we'll give 5k to the frontal here, so Barrow is actually going to swing in for a very, very impressive 43 and a crit. Of course, we're going to go ahead and have to guard that and I guess pitch this order here. First check is of course the heal trigger. As we know, we can heal, give power to Krogra, who can swing in a lot better now, and check our Curtis. Had we have used the Krogra, we would have checked an Engraver, which would not have been as great. We're going to go ahead and swing in here with Krogra, who is going to swing in for a nice big 45, which cannot be guarded here because we don't have anything to guard. And then we got another big number here, which we'll just have to go ahead and take and pass turn on that. The big thing that Barrow has over Eva is that it can very easily just eat up all of the resources early if you manage to get your cards right and actually be able to go in with a big swing. Otherwise, you just get outdone with the pressure, which is why I play the deck the way that I do. Let's go ahead and draw for turn. Let's go ahead and Persona Ride here, a draw into a PG regretfully. Let's use the skill of Eva to look at the top 3. Actually get the order here, which is pretty sick. Go ahead and play that. Look at the top 5. I guess we'll get the Combine Rusher out here. Put these all in the bottom of the deck and shuffle. Eva will get the +5 here. We can try and get an additional swing here. Try and close this out with the power that we have. This is going to get some power, and we can go ahead and Soul Blast out here. Rest our orders to give, I guess this the power, and we can go ahead and use this to add an upgrade to our hand here. We don't really need that 4th order. So we're going to go ahead and swing in here with the 30. We really don't want to take anything, to be honest here. Thankfully, we have a decent hand for guarding right now. So we're going to go ahead and do 33 there to guard that. Eva will swing in here, Counter Blast 1, Soul Blast 1, drop the obscure or the Combine Rusher. Call the obscurated with the 10k and the crit here. We will go ahead and use this PG from the Elementia to guard this attack here. First check, Bubble Mine. Second check is just going to be in order regretfully for the Eva player here. They can go ahead and try and swing into our unit, or just try and swing into game, considering we don't have a lot of cards in hand. Play it however they want. I think we just have to take one here regardless. Or actually, yeah, we have to take one here regardless. We can't guard both. And then we, of course, have to PG the last attack here. We have ourselves 4 cards in deck. So we can go ahead and stand and draw here. And if we use barrel scale here, we die. We don't have the persona ride number, so we're just gonna have to go in like this. They can go ahead and swing in this wing. This is 15, which they can go ahead and try and guard with this. But then the Lilac Lasher comes in, and we can actually find out how much power this guy has. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Would have actually made sense to do things this way, so that this can go into soul and this actually becomes bigger. So we actually can give the 2K here, and this is actually going to be a massive 50 here, which we can go ahead and PG here, and then Barrel can swing in here, no skill, just swing in for 13, which we can guard here with a 2 to pass. First check, second check, crit. We could have attacked in a different order. I think either way we would lose here, because then they can just pass turn and we end up drawing. So had we not discarded the Kinley Ludley, would have been in a better spot there. We could have put it there and probably closed out the game, because there was no cards left in hand here. So that was a bit of a misplay. The last damage would have not been an overdrive. Here is the list. 3 of the issues that I had with my previous builds for this deck was 1, the fact that it was very difficult for me to actually get 5 attacks consistently, because after I did my big swing on turn 3 and all of my units went into soul, I had no easy way to, on the next turn, pull out 2 additional units that I can actually swing in at my opponent's Vanguard so that I can actually get the full 5 attacks. Typically it would just be Barrel would just swing in by himself, and then I'd call out 2 units, only getting 3 attacks. The second issue is that I had to be on high enough damage to actually be able to do anything. Typically somewhere between 2 or 3 counterblasts to actually be able to pull off everything and actually be able to do something. This became a big issue because of the fact that I can't really guard a lot, which means if I'm already at 2 or 3 damage, surviving my opponent's next turn was very difficult. So I wanted to make a build that was able to work with just 1 counterblast at most. 3, with all those things combined, there were just some games where I just was not able to just close out the games. So I wanted something that punched just a little bit harder, and that's where we have this list here. So starting off with the grade 3s, we have 4 copies of Phantasm Magician Curtis, 3 copies of Pandemonium Tactics, and 2 copies of Master of Gravity Baromagnes in the main deck. We're playing 4 copies of Curtis in order to be able to soul charge in combination with Pandemonium Tactics, 3 copies of this because the 2 of these allow us to soul charge the most out of all of the cards, just using 1 card. So that's saying, what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to use as little cards as possible to soul charge as much cards as possible, and these 2 allow us to do this. Originally, I had for many times discussed not playing the Persona rides in Baromagnes because when you're trying to hit 15 soul on your grade 3 turn, this does not give you any soul. It is a dead card in hand. Anytime before that, you can't use it to guard, and you have to kind of draw into this to make it useful. The only times it was super useful if you happen to be stuck on 14 and you can Persona ride and hit 15, and then you would be enabled, but that would be on turn 4. This actually solves 2 of the issues that I was having, issue number 1 and issue number 3. One being that I wasn't able to get the 5 attacks. Using power from the Persona ride, I was able to buff up my front row units, so even if I had to throw down a trigger or any of these grade 2s that maybe don't actually hit, this would actually make them be able to swing in. The other issue that this helped fix is the fact that I just wasn't able to close out some games. So not only does this make my Lilac Rushers even huger, it also makes Barrel really big, and also as well as making some of my first swings actually, do something. So this helped out with a lot of those issues. For the grade 2s, we have 4 copies of Selfish Engraver, 3 copies of Lilac Rusher, 2 copies of Cutting Sword Quagra, and 1 singular copy of Keenly Ludley. I did not do this on purpose. The whole 4, 3, 2, 1, that just happened to happen. With issue number 1, Selfish Engraver is one of the most important cards because we can stay on 1 damage, still be able to have the chance to soul charge via attack hits, but also most importantly, be able to keep moving my mat up because my camera keeps sliding down. Be able to actually countercharge after using my Pandemonium Tactics. So that's how I can use Pandemonium Tactics, stay on 1 counterblast, countercharge with Selfish Engraver, and then go in and use the skill of my Baromagnes, who also requires 1 counterblast. The Lilac Lasher is essential because it is your main game finisher. It swings in with massive power because it gets 2k for every card in your soul, which means it can very easily hit 36, 56, 68. Depending on how things go, making it extremely threatening, especially if you can get yourself a critical trigger on this. It is very lethal. The Kogra, as always, has been very useful. I did a separate video on Kogra by himself, and he continues to be extremely useful. Of course, he's starting to become a little less useful, which is why he's only at 2 copies here. We have the Kini Luddy here, who I just threw in as just the emergency button. As always, I do not have a high regard in this card just because towards the end of the game, if I do not finish out the game with her big swing, then I just put in a bunch of crap into my deck that is not really going to help me. Not to mention the Lilac Lasher always pretty much hits higher than Kini Luddy can anyway, and it is just for free, and don't have to counterblast or put stuff back into my deck. For the grade 1s here, we have ourselves 4 copies of Brainwash Swirler, 3 copies of the Flaming Pony, and then 4 copies of PGs, 3 of the unit PGs, 1 of the Elementia Sanctitude. These PGs here say whenever you use them to guard, they allow one of your units to not be hit at the cost of discarding 1 card. However, if you only have 1 or less cards in your hand, you do not have to discard. Likewise, the Elementia Sanctitude does the same thing, but it is a blitz order, so it gets around certain restrictions. And also, if your Vanguard's grade 3 and your opponent's Vanguard is higher than yours, or I should say more specifically has triple drive, so you can actually use this against VMN's Bruce or any Bruce that uses Maple, you don't have to discard for this. The Flaming Pony here in the main deck helps out a lot because you have lots of big ways to soul charge. It wasn't working out so well for me when I was just relying on things like Brainwash Swirler or the Amazing Magician, things like that when I only soul charged for slightly smaller numbers. With the Pandemonium Tactics, it's very likely that I'll hit at least 1 Flaming Pony. Of course, it's not as great because I'm not playing a Mandine in this build as you've seen so far. And that's because a Mandine is sort of the problem with, I think, issue number 2, which was that I needed to have so much counterblast in order to be able to use her. In order to use a Mandine, you have to counterblast 1 in order to enable her skill, and then you still need counterblast 1 for Barrow, and then you have to play several units in order to hit 15 soul. Whereas if I can just hit Pandemonium, I can hit, just play 1 card. Even with a Mandai, that becomes Soul Charge 5, but then that becomes 3 counterblasts that have to have available in that same turn, or 2 counterblasts and a half Selfish Engraver, and that's kind of asking for a lot. Whereas this is a little bit more minimalistic and allows me to just stay as low damage as possible, so I can soak up a lot of hits later on and win on my turn 4, ideally by Persona riding with the big numbers from the Lilac Lasher. The Flaming Pony is a decent card because it helps me extend my soul charges. Brainwash Swirler becomes an extra soul charge, Pandemonium becomes soul charge 5, Curse becomes soul charge 3. Because you combine this from soul and soul charge 2, it does remove itself, so you lose 1 soul, but you get 2 souls, so it's just basically a soul plus 1. It also powers up your Brainwash Swirler here, who we're playing 4 copies of, because it does on play soul charge 1, and when you're on grade 3 or greater, it gets 5k power every time you soul charge. It becomes a huge hit. The main thing with Brainwash Swirler is that with this build specifically, you're not doing a lot early game, so this allows you to get a basically free hit on your opponent's Vanguard, because this will swing in sometimes for 60, 81, and your opponent will just not be able to guard this because they'd rather save their PGs for the Baromagnes, which means this easily allows you to catch up on damage, pushing your opponent to primarily 3 or 4 damage depending on what went earlier in the game, making Baromagnes hit for lethal and making Lasher very difficult to guard. For the triggers here, we're going to be playing 5 critical triggers. It's very important to play the Steam Deviate effect trigger because there are very often times where I just need 1 extra card to go into Soul, or even 2, and I can just throw down the Steam Deviate, put it into Soul. This is basically the only deck that I think really needs these critical triggers. We got the extra 1 crit here, and then we're actually playing ourselves 6 draw. I was never really a big fan of either the Persona Ride or the massive draws that, for example, the Japanese side of Baromagnes has adapted. The reason for this is, of course, because you typically deck out, you don't have a lot of shield value, so on and so forth. This deck is a sort of weird hybrid of being super aggressive while also being able to last longer, because the draws allow you to draw into other cards, so you actually have cards in your hand in between the draw from Baromagnes as well as the Kara, allowing you to get a PG from Soul. Your hand is not abysmal as much as it, like a lot of people like to think it is, that, like to think of Barrow, this massive glass cannon. That's not entirely the case right now. The draws help you out just to also get other of your cards. For example, early game, while it's great to hit a critical trigger, it's actually a little bit better to hit a draw trigger for Baromagnes so you can actually get cards in hand. If it's a trigger, that's great. We can use that to guard early and stay on low damage. If it's a unit, that's great. We can probably soul charge with that. The only bad part is when you hit a Flaming Pony, unless you don't have one in hand, then well, whatever. We can just use it with the Electro Spartan. We're playing here 4 of the normal heals here. I know that come set 10, a lot of people are going to be switching over to the critical heal triggers, the counter heal. I don't think Baromagnes is in this position where he can play that just yet. The problem being is the nature of the deck that just so charges a bunch of cards and puts them into the deck. So it's very difficult to actually have the heal that you need for a certain unit or Vanguard that you're facing off against in your hand to actually be able to use it. You're better off just banking on the extra shield value or the normal shield value of these triggers. We're playing the Hades Dragon Deity of Resentment, the Dark States Overtrigger. Once Festival Collection comes, we have a choice between the blue and the red Overtrigger. The blue one's not that bad because you can get a crit to your Lilac Lasher and add a PG or something to hand, and in general it's not that bad. The red one is probably the one that is more likely going to be played because early game you can draw up 2 if you check it early, whereas later on you can make these Lilac Lashers swing in twice, which is pretty good. So you can very easily call out like Lilac Lasher, Cutting Sword Grants, Kagura, Cutting Sword, Dance Kagura, add a PG from Soul, give your Kagura 100 million power if you check it, and then you can have your Lilac Lasher restand. So you're basically almost swinging in for 300 millions because it's going to be extremely big and it's going to require PG anyways. But you're more than welcome to also play the Baria, because you can have 2 of your units just have 100 million since Barrow is more likely going to be guarded, so the Dark States critical trigger isn't as important most of the times. And then finally, last but not least, for the ride line, we're just playing the Uncanny Burning. You don't have to play this, you can play whatever you want. Playing one of the Flaming Pony in the ride deck. You can, in this specific build, you can switch this out for the Deep Sonicer, because there are times where I don't manage to hit either the Kagura or the Lilac Lasher, and I wish I had something I can call out from Soul. The only thing that I would say about the Flaming Pony that it is nice that it's Soul Charge is 2, so you might be able to hit another pony. Also, you can use it on your grade 3 turn in order to power up your swirlers here. Then we have ourselves the Electro Spartan, which I think is pretty required just because it allows you to put a card from hand to Soul and Soul Charge 1, as well as draw whenever you ride Baromagnes. None of the other grade 2 Vanguards give you any plus on the ride of Baromagnes, so it's really good. And of course we're playing Baromagnes because the deck is Baromagnes. For the options here, we're going to keep it rather brief because I'm sure this is the main thing everyone is trying to get me to talk about, which is the Direful Doll. Why am I not playing Direful Doll Amandine? Direful Doll Amandine has a skill where during your turn, if your soul has 10 or more cards, this unit gets 10k power, and you can have an act ability once per turn. You can counterblast 1, and at the end of turn, whenever you soul charge by an ability, you soul charge +1. So your Pandemonium Tactics become soul charge 5, your Sorters become soul charge 2, they get 10k power, your Curtises become soul charge 3, and your ponies become soul charge 3. The reason I stopped playing Amandine is because of the issues that I mentioned in the deck list portion, where I just needed a lot of Counterblast to make this work, because she's Counterblast 1, Barrow's Counterblast 1, and I want to play Pandemonium Tactics instead of playing several units. I was playing a build that did not use any orders and just tried to use several units to build up my soul, but it just became kind of difficult to consistently actually hit 15 soul and actually have other cards in my hand, or, you know, able that I can actually do something with, because I had to just commit my whole hand in order to be able to do anything, and sometimes not even be able to hit 15 soul and try to bank on something like a pony to get lucky. With the fact that Baromagnes can't really have a large hand size because it has to commit so many cards, especially on turn 3, you really don't want to take a lot of damage early on. So having to push yourself to minimum 2 Counterblast plus a Selfish Engraver in order to be able to do anything here, or 1 Counterblast plus several cards in hand in order to be able to do this, is pretty risky. You can try and instead maybe play several draws so that you have enough cards to be able to use Engraver and this, or just Counterblast 1 and possibly not as many cards from your hand. But I've just found so much more success either using the Pandemonium Tactics Curtis Swirler combo with Engraver to just stay on 1 damage and be able to soak up my opponent's next 1 or 2 attacks and then win on, you know, my respective attacks after that, and as well as maybe even not having to go that far, maybe even staying on 10 and playing a little bit slower or aggressive until I hit 15 when I need to. So that's why we're not playing Amandine. Feel free to use it for yourself, but that's the reason why I'm not playing it. Next up, we've got the Assure Wild Flame Frenidio. friend a deal. Here from set 9, a brand new card here for Baromagnes, the last piece of Baromagnes that we're getting for a while because we're not getting anything specific, set 10 or 11. This card is a card that I was immediately not very excited about because it looks really cool, but its effect seemed mediocre, but it's actually a very decent effect. When it attacks a Vanguard, if you have Baromagnes as your Vanguard, you put one of your rear guards into Soul. Choose one of your opponent's rear guards, put them into Soul. If you don't, have any units on your opponent's side that you can choose, this guy gets 10k. You have to choose at least one, so it's not like you can choose not to, unfortunately, which is the part that I don't like. I also don't like that this is locked to Baromagnes, but also attacking into the Vanguard. It would have been nice to use this early on to put my ponies into Soul, get rid of my opponent's annoying units that they throw out to try and rush me with, but this is only on turn 3. The main purpose that I used this for was to tuck in my Lilac Lashers so that in the Jet matchup, it doesn't get bot decked, or in any other matchup like the Wellstra, it doesn't get retired, and I can use Lilac Lasher next turn, which is a decent option. Also swings in for 30, which is a little bit bigger than the Quagga, who I usually call out with a Lasher if I don't have another Lasher, if I don't want to expend both Lashers that turn. So he asked for more cards for hand, which is decent, but Quagga being able to do some more so many things is why I decided to instead use Quagga. I might end up taking out the Keenly Lovely for just a single copy of this, however. Finally, I took out the Amazement Magician. Amazement Magician is one of my favorite cards because it allows me to aggress early, get some damage early. The thought process is 1 with Amanda, and I can Soul Charge 1 on turn 2. Next turn, if she's still around, I can Soul Charge 2, making her Soul Charge 3 for free, which is pretty good. It's a curse that can actually intercept, and I can play it early. Also, likewise, I can aggress on turn 2, be able to take out my opponent's units if they try to rush me, or I can swing into my opponent, push them to possibly 2, 3 if I take a crit, which means when I go with my Swirlers, my Lilac Rushers, my Barrow, I can actually close out the game because of this. Also, she's a grade 2, so I don't have to worry about throwing down a Curtis or anything else, and having it Soul Charge on place. I can try and use this to attack. And finally, her skill says May Soul Charge, so she's not like the dude from set 2, who every time he attacks a Vanguard, you have to Soul Charge 1, but it's mandatory. This you get to choose, so it's very nice late game. However, too many times was I getting Counterblast denied because of this, and it didn't really add up to enough, so I ended up cutting this back. I might end up changing my mind depending on how things go for set 10. Barrow's in a weird spot for set 10, to be honest. Due to Dark Stakes having the unfortunate distinction of being the nation that gets 2 masks in set 10, it means that there's really no support for anything else, which is why the only cards that we can consider from this set going further are Cage of Evil Stars, which is an order that says Soul Charge 1, choose a grade 3 or less from your soul and call it to rear, and it gets 5k. This is a somewhat interesting card. With a mana becomes Soul Charge 2, you can pull out a Curtis from your soul, so you get a little bit extra soul for free. Kind of becomes a Pandemonium without the Counterblast. I think it's a little bit too situational, but I think it is an interesting order to play around with, but I'll have to see if I can make it work. The last card that we can actually kind of play, but we won't be able to play in actuality, is the Black Sky Thunderquaking Queen Lymina, which is the Psycho card from set 10, which is a grade 2, mainly for the skill that says we can discard, or when it's discarded for Ride, you Soul Blast 1, put this card in the bottom of your deck and draw a card. We can't really give up to Soul Blast 1. That's just not something Barrow that does. That's not something Barrow can do. I'm hoping that they print a Barrow exclusive version of this that like puts a card from your drop into Soul, or just puts her into Soul, or something like that, because obviously as a Baromagnes player we can't afford to just Soul Blast 1 to draw a card. Then the second skill, if you're not playing Persona Rides, is useless. If you are playing Persona Rides, it's okay, because it says when you place it from hand you Counterblast 1. If you Persona roll this turn, choose a card from your soul and call it, and then you may Soul Charge 1. So it's okay in those situations where you don't have a lot. You can, play this and get 2 units out on board that can swing in because you have the Persona Ride, but the Counterblast is kind of heavy, yeah, unfortunately we're not going to be able to play this card. And if you haven't secured your set 10 cards yet, I have just the place for you. Wanted to take a quick moment to thank everyone for 700 plus subs on the channel. Woo! But also I wanted to announce that I now have an affiliate link. Woo! I never thought when I started this channel that I'd actually get to say these words, but I'm proud to say that I'm now an affiliate with Saga Concepts, which is a card store / hobby store over in Eaglewood, New Jersey. If you're ever in the area, feel free to stop by. Hey, you might even see me there as well. Outside of having a brick and mortar location, they also have an online store where you can get everything from new releases to even pre-orders for upcoming products. Not to mention so many other things. So if you're in any way interested, please consider using the link in the description down below to help out the channel, but also help yourself out to 5% off on your first order. Go ahead and run that back here. Stand up Vanguard. Once again, we're going to go first here. We're going to go ahead and discard the critical trigger here. Go into the Flaming Pony and pass turn on that. Draw for a turn. Let's go ahead and discard the doggo, ride into the grade 1. We can use the skill of the doggo to either add it to soul or play it in the order zone. Let's just put it in the order zone here and draw for Gordon second and swing in here. You can also throw this down here in order to get some early aggression as well. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll go ahead and guard that. And we'll take the Vanguard swing here. It's going to be a front trigger. Take 1 damage here. And start our turn. Stand, duel, endo, drool. A bit unfortunate here, judging from the fact that we did lose an engraver, but we're probably going to get rushed here. We can discard an engraver of our own and ride into the Electro Spartan. Here we have the option of swinging into the X-Crat, so we don't have to worry about next turn or giving them the damage, which solves both problems actually if we don't give them the damage. So I think we'll actually swing into the X-Crat here. They can protect it here with this heal trigger. We'll check, we'll go to King Lovely and pass the turn on that. We'll stand and draw here. Judging from the low amount of counterblast we have currently, let's go ahead and discard this critical trigger to run into the grade 2. We're going to use the skill here to search our deck in order to play the doggo. I don't believe it matters if I already have one. Nope. And search with that. We're going to play Luetzel from our hand here. We're going to draw 1 Soul Charge 1 here. We can go ahead and use the skill here to Soul Blast out X-Scrap, and we can call out the doggo, I guess. I have to remove this back. Could call out an extra card here, but we might end up losing it from the barrel swing, right? So you can swing in however way you'd want. Let's say we swing with the Vanguard here. We'll have to no guard that. Drive check, just the Wetzel. Judge our damage check. Draw trigger, power, and we'll draw into a Lasher. They can swing in, but it won't matter, and this will go into the order zone again, and they can end turn on that. So we'll go ahead and stand and draw here. We're probably gonna have to discard this, but maybe I can't see another way where we don't discard this. I guess we can discard the Lilac Lasher to make up for a misplay for last time, because we would have won had we had the Kingly Ludling. So we put in the pony, draw 1, Soul Charge 1 here. We're going to play the Swirler, use the skill to Soul Charge 1. He's going to get +5 for 13. Let's go ahead and throw down Pandemonium Tactics here. Counter Blast 1 in order to Soul Charge 4. Those are really good hits there, because those aren't triggers except for that one draw trigger. So now we're going to go from 13 to 33 here. Let's go ahead and throw down a Cowboy Curtis here, Soul Charge 2. We're going to go from 33 to 43, and then we're going to Soul Charge 2 with another Curtis to go from 43 to 53 here. And in our soul we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 cards. So we can technically just bind 1 pony, but we're going to do all 3 here, as much as our luck has been really good, but I don't have anything good to call out from my soul, since I did discard the Lilac Lasher here, unfortunately. So we're actually going to Soul Charge 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Yep. Had I maybe only done a couple, I would have had a crazy drive check. Actually, had I done none, had I done just the 1, I would put this to soul. I would have drew this for Barrow's skill. I would have checked the heal and then the over trigger, which is a bit unfortunate here. But we're gonna go from 483 to 73 here, and we're just gonna throw this down here, no skill. And let's just go ahead and swing in here for 13. As much as we want the damage, we don't want to get hit here. We don't need this guy anymore because we're going to get a bunch of counter blasts here. We're going to swing in here for a humongous number. We're just going to take that, check the heal trigger. Then let's go ahead and swing in with Baromagnes. Go ahead and use skill counter blast 1. We're going to draw trigger. He's going to get 10k in a crit, and all units will go to soul. Of course, we do not have the best targets here, regretfully, because we did end up discarding. So you can do one of two things. Actually, you can only really do one thing, which is to call out the engravers, because they can go to soul and you don't have to worry about losing them. When your opponent goes in, you can go ahead and throw out a Curtis here, roll the dice, soul charge into not the best options there. Would have been nice to check that crit and that PG, so you could have called out instead the Persona Ride, which would have done the same effect, but I was trying to high roll there and get some good options for later. But this is going to be 23 here. We can at least put in the engraver so it doesn't get retired next turn. If Curtis gets retired, it's oh well. So 23, this is in soul. 23 to R20, this makes it 35, which is 2 to pounds. Let's go ahead and do that. Considering we check so many triggers, we're actually going to get a draw trigger, so we'll draw here. It's going to be another draw trigger, which is unfortunate, and we can give the power here to Curtis. Swinging with engraver, I'm assuming they'll probably take this, check the over trigger actually, and draw as well. Soul charge, she'll go to soul. We counter charge. We'll swing in with Curtis just for the sake of it, but it will not hit. So stand and draw here. Let's discard the critical trigger to ride into Welstra. Use the skill here to get. We can either get Luvetsu or the Freischutz. Judging from our damage, we might actually be able to just go into the Freischutz here. Let's go ahead and use the skill of this. We can go ahead and put this to soul this time. And we can play Luvetsu from our hand here in order to draw one. Soul charge 1. Didn't get the best option here, so we can go into our Freiheit here. Counter blast 1. Thought we would have had more counter blast, but we're going to go and discard the front in order to get the Freischutz maximum here, which we can then go ahead and play. We don't have a lot, but we can go ahead and play this here. And now what we can do is we can go to battle. We can swing in with Freiheit, use the skill here to Soul Blast out 2. Barrel will get -5 because we're going to operate the Freischutz. Then since we operated Freischutz, we can go ahead and use this guy's skill here to counter blast 1. Counter charge 1 by Soul Blasting 1. And then also Welster gets +5 from operating. So we're actually here at 8 to my opponent's 10. We don't want to take too much damage here, so let's go ahead and guard this. You want to guard early with Welstra because the numbers will make it pretty difficult later on. We'll go ahead and swing in with Welstra, use his skill here to operate. Of course, sorry, this is retired. To operate Freischutz, so now I'm at 3. And then we'll use the skill of Freischutz here to call it out with the counterblast, putting this into our hand, and then Welstra gets another +5 here. We don't have the best hand here, so I think our best is just try and take this. First check Freischutz, second check just PG, so we're just going to take 1 here. This guy's going to swing in for 10. We are at 3. This puts us at 13. And then the Freischutz here swings in for 23. We could try and guard this here. This puts us at 18. And this puts us at 28. No pass turn on that. Freischutz will go back. Let's go ahead and stand and draw here. We can go ahead. We can keep this in hand and call this out. Go ahead and swing in here with the Lilac Lasher, who is going to be at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, which is going to put him at a total of 48. It's a swing in here, which is pretty high, so I think we'll just take that. Put that in the damage zone there. We'll swing in here with barrel, counterblast 1 here, draw 1, put this into soul, barrel gets 10k crit. We're going to just call that back out here. And something else to attack with. We have a decent number of cards in our deck left where we won't deck out this turn, but we can possibly put some stuff back. Maybe we'll do that now. Use the skill barrel counterblast, or skill of cleaning Ludley here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 cards. So we'll actually go ahead and put back normal units only. So we're going to choose, we're going to go ahead and choose these 6. So we still have 15, put them into the deck and shuffle. Since we put back 6, Keenan Ludley is going to get plus 30. So she is going to be able to swing in for 15. Whereas the Lilac Lasher, now that we should be at 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. We're actually at 16, so I could put in 1 extra card. Since we're at 16, the Lilac Lasher is at 44. That is not barrel. There we go. Okay, swing in there for 23 and a crit. This is going to go to soul here. I guess we can either take this or PG it here. We don't really have options to discard in our hand, which is a problem with Welstra when it comes to this matchup, is that you lose your whole board and you really don't have a lot of cards to guard with. And Barrel asks for quite a lot. Let's say we no guard here. We're going to check a crit power. Second check is going to be a PG, so there's going to be 3 damage here. First check, PG. Second check is Freiheit. Third check is actually going to be, unfortunately, the Baromagnes. No defensives there. Let's go ahead and swing in here for, actually this is a little bit bigger. I give the power here, so yeah, so this is a little bit bigger. If not, I'm cheating and I'm saying I gave the power here. So this is, I think, 40 something. So we obviously want to survive here, so we're gonna use the Elementaria. I guess we can discard this, right? Because we can go ahead and use it with the Persona Ride, but unfortunately here we have the 50. We would have to maybe discard and give up the Freiheit here, or maybe give up the Persona Ride. I'm not really sure which one is more valuable at this point. I'm assuming just to get an extra body. Maybe give up the Persona Ride here. Pass turn on that. Ride, and unfortunately draw into a heal trigger. We're going to go and we can play Fresh Schultz here. Counterblast 1, discard, add copy of Fresh Schultz Maximum to our hand and go ahead and play it. I guess we can go ahead and swing in here, use the skill of Fresh Schultz Maximum, Soul Blast out 2, minus power, and probably blow up the Lilac Lasher. So now we are at 8. Since she's going to get bopped, we'll go ahead and guard here. Then, of course, Welser gets plus 5 from that. Welser comes in. We'll use the skill of Fresh Schultz again to call it out. Counterblast 1 here and swing in here for 18, plus another 5 from operating yet again. We are at 3, so I think we'll PG this here. Discard the Curtis. First check, Fresh Schultz. Second check, unfortunately, is just the X-Rat. And then we'll just swing in again, or you can just pass turn and not give me the counterblast. I think that might be the better choice, to be honest. It's not giving me the counterblast, so we'll put this back here. And then we'll stand and draw. We have to get the Persona right here, so we draw a card. We can play out the Engraver and then the Quagua, which gives front row plus 5 here. So we'll swing in with Engraver here for 20, who does let us counter charge, which Welstra can do. It's just 20. I guess you can do 23 here. And then Quagua will swing in here for 15. You can try and guard this, or better option is probably to just take it here. Either way, there's no more cards to guard. We will attack, we will draw this, check, and check. And that would be the game.